Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling this book. It's been a management Bible for over 50 years.
Oh, wow.
The Effective Executive by Peter Drucker.
Okay.
We've got excerpts from the book itself, plus some incredible insights from the foreword to the 50th anniversary edition.
Wow.
It was written by someone who knew Drucker personally and really brings his ideas to life.
What's striking is that even after all these years, Drucker's work is still so incredibly relevant.
Yeah.
He just had this knack for cutting through all the noise and identifying these timeless principles that apply.
Right.
Whether you're running a company, leading a team, or just trying to get things done in your own life.
So let's just dive right into the heart of the matter.
Okay.
What does it actually mean to be effective?
Right.
The foreword actually calls The Effective Executive the definitive book on the subject, and it emphasizes that it's not just for CEOs in corner offices.
Yeah.
Drucker's ideas apply to anyone who wants to make a real contribution.
Right.
And that could be anyone listening right now.
Absolutely. Drucker debunks this myth that effectiveness is some kind of magical talent that you're either born with or not.
Right?
He argues that it's a set of practices, habits, and mindsets that anyone can learn and develop. It's almost like he's saying, stop wishing you were more effective and start practicing the things that effective people do.
I love that.
Yeah,
So instead of feeling like we're stuck with our current level of effectiveness, we can actually choose to improve it.
absolutely.
But where do we even begin?
Well, Drucker really hammered home this idea that you can't manage anything else effectively unless you manage your time.
Okay.
He considered time to be the scarcest resource, especially for knowledge workers.
Yeah.
And I think this is where a lot of us struggle, right?
Oh, for sure.
There are always more demands on our time than there are hours in the day.
Every time I look at my to-do list, it feels like it's multiplying faster than I can cross things off.
Right.
So how did Drucker suggest we tackle this time management beast?
He had this really interesting concept called time quanta. It's the idea that many of the most important tasks, especially for knowledge workers, require large, uninterrupted blocks of time to be truly effective.
Okay.
It's not just about the total number of hours you work. It's about having those dedicated chunks of time where you can really focus and get into a flow state.
Okay, so it's not just about working more hours, it's about working smarter by structuring our time in a way that allows for deep work.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But how do we actually put this into practice?
Right.
I mean, I can barely find 5 minutes to grab a coffee, let alone 90 minutes for uninterrupted deep work.
Well, Drucker was a big believer in tracking your time.
Okay.
He said the simple act of recording how you actually spend your time can be incredibly revealing. It's like holding up a mirror to your workday and seeing where those precious hours are really going.
You know, I've tried time tracking before, and I have to admit, it can be a little bit daunting at first. It's like facing the reality of how much time I spend scrolling through social media or getting sucked into email rabbit holes.
Yeah.
But I can also see how that awareness could be the first step towards making real change.
Exactly. Once you see where your time is going,
Yeah.
you can start to identify those time wasters
Right.
and make more conscious choices about how you spend your days.
Yeah.
Drucker even suggests setting aside specific blocks of time for deep work and protecting them fiercely.
Okay.
He tells a story about an executive who would only allow calls from the president and his wife during his 90-minute focus sessions.
Oh,
Talk about commitment.
that's some next level focus.
Right.
But you know, I'm starting to wonder what good is all this focus and deep work if we're not working on the right things? How do we even know what the right things are?
That's a fantastic question. And it leads right into one of Drucker's most powerful ideas,
Okay.
focusing on contribution.
Okay.
He argued that we should constantly be asking ourselves, what am I contributing? It's about shifting our focus from just doing tasks to thinking about the impact our work has on the organization and those around us.
So it's not just about checking things off our to-do list, it's about understanding how those tasks contribute to a larger purpose.
Exactly.
That's really insightful, but it also sounds a little bit abstract.
Sure.
Do you have an example of what this might look like in practice?
Absolutely. Drucker talks about the 3 directions of contribution:
Okay.
upwards, downwards, and sideways.
Okay.
Contributing upwards is about supporting your boss and helping them achieve their objectives. Contributing downwards is about developing your team and empowering them to succeed.
Right.
And contributing sideways is about collaborating effectively with your colleagues in other departments.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But I can also see how this could be challenging, especially in organizations where people are very siloed
Right.
or focused on their own individual performance metrics. How do we encourage this kind of contribution-focused mindset in a culture that might not be naturally supportive of it?
Drucker believed that it starts with asking the right questions.
Okay.
Instead of just focusing on what you do, ask yourself, what contribution do I need to make to help others be effective?
Mm.
This shifts the focus from what I do to how can I support you?
That's a brilliant reframing.
Right.
And it also highlights the importance of communication and understanding the needs and perspectives of others.
Exactly. And speaking of communication, Drucker had some strong opinions about meetings.
Oh, yeah.
He called them a fact of executive life, but he also warned that too many of them are unproductive time wasters.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can all relate to that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We've all been in meetings that could have been emails.
Yes.
Or that just felt like a complete waste of time.
Meetings can be the black holes of productivity,
Yes.
sucking in our time and energy without producing anything of real value.
Right.
So how did Drucker suggest we escape this meeting madness?
He had this deceptively simple but incredibly powerful piece of advice.
Okay.
Be crystal clear about the purpose of the meeting.
Okay.
Before you even schedule it, ask yourself, why are we having this meeting?
Right.
What are we trying to achieve?
Mm-hmm.
He emphasized that every meeting needs a clear, actionable objective.
Right.
Otherwise, it's just a social gathering disguised as work.
That makes so much sense. It's like having a mission statement for your meeting.
Right.
But how do you make sure everyone is on board with that mission and that the meeting actually stays focused on achieving its objective?
Drucker believed that preparation is key.
Okay.
He talked about different types of meetings and how to approach each one to ensure they're productive.
Right.
For example, if it's a decision-making meeting, make sure everyone has the necessary information beforehand
Okay.
and that the decision criteria are clear.
Yeah.
If it's a brainstorming session,
Right.
create an environment where people feel comfortable sharing ideas without judgment.
I've definitely been in brainstorming meetings where it felt like people were holding back
Sure.
or afraid to share their crazy ideas.
Yeah,
That can really stifle creativity.
absolutely.
So it sounds like Drucker was saying that the way you structure and facilitate the meeting can have a huge impact on its effectiveness.
Absolutely. And this leads into another one of his key principles,
Yeah.
staffing from strength.
Oh, okay.
Now, this might sound a bit counterintuitive at first,
Yeah.
but Drucker was adamant that we should focus on maximizing people's strengths
Okay.
rather than trying to fix their weaknesses.
I have to admit that does sound a bit radical.
Right.
I mean, isn't the goal to be well-rounded and competent in all areas?
Yeah.
Don't we want to address our weaknesses so we can improve?
Drucker would argue that while it's important to be aware of our weaknesses, our greatest potential lies in our strengths.
Okay.
He believed that by putting people in roles that allow them to leverage their unique talents,
Right.
we can unlock these extraordinary levels of performance and engagement.
Okay, I'm starting to see the logic here.
Yeah.
But how do we identify those strengths?
Right.
Sometimes it can be hard to even recognize our own strengths, let alone the strengths of others.
Drucker believed that regular appraisal and feedback are essential,
Okay.
but not the kind of appraisal that focuses on picking apart people's flaws.
Right.
He suggested a more strengths-based approach,
Mm-hmm.
where you focus on identifying what people do well and how they can use those strengths to make a greater contribution.
So instead of a dreaded annual review where you get grilled about your shortcomings,
Right.
it's more of an ongoing dialogue about how you can leverage your strengths to grow and develop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this requires a shift in mindset, both for individuals and for organizations.
Right. Yeah.
We need to move away from this traditional focus on weaknesses
Yeah.
and start celebrating and leveraging the unique strengths that each person brings to the table. Drucker used this brilliant analogy from President Lincoln during the Civil War. Grant, Lincoln's top general, was known to enjoy a drink or two.
Oh, wow.
But Lincoln recognized Grant's strategic brilliance
Oh,
and entrusted him with leading the Union Army. When critics questioned Grant's drinking, Lincoln famously said,
yeah.
"If I knew his brand, I'd send a barrel or so to some other generals."
Wow.
Lincoln understood that Grant's ability to win battles far outweighed any personal weaknesses.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
It really highlights how focusing on strengths
Right.
rather than getting bogged down in weaknesses can lead to extraordinary results.
Exactly.
But how does this play out in a more everyday work environment?
It's about creating a culture where people feel comfortable acknowledging their strengths
Right.
and are encouraged to use them to the fullest. It's about designing jobs and teams in a way that leverages those strengths,
Yeah.
rather than trying to fit everyone into a standardized mold.
This is making me think about how we often try to hire the perfect fit for a job,
Right.
as if there's one ideal candidate who checks all the boxes.
Yeah. But maybe it's more about finding someone with the right strengths for the role,
Exactly.
even if they don't perfectly match every requirement on the job description.
Precisely. Drucker believed that jobs change constantly. So what you really need are people with strong, adaptable strengths who can rise to the occasion.
Okay.
It's about building teams with diverse skills and talents that complement each other.
This makes me think about my own team.
Yeah,
We definitely have a mix of personalities and working styles,
right.
but we also have some amazing strengths that, when combined, allow us to accomplish incredible things.
Yeah.
It's like each person brings a different piece to the puzzle.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Drucker was getting at.
Mm.
He believed that by focusing on strengths, we can create teams that are greater than the sum of their parts.
Okay, so we've covered time management, focusing on contribution, running effective meetings, and staffing from strength.
Right.
I'm already feeling overwhelmed, but in a good way.
I know, right? It's like all these light bulbs are going off in my head.
Yeah.
But I'm also wondering, how do we keep all these balls in the air? How do we actually prioritize and focus on the most important things when there's so much vying for our attention?
Drucker had a simple but profound answer to that.
Okay.
First things first.
Okay.
He believed that concentration is the real key to effectiveness. It's about having the discipline to focus on one thing at a time and make sure it's the right thing.
Right.
This might seem obvious,
Yeah.
but in our world of constant distractions, it's easier said than done.
Oh, tell me about it.
Right.
I feel like I'm constantly battling a barrage of notifications, emails, and urgent requests. It's like my brain is being pulled in a million directions at once.
So how do we actually cultivate this elusive power of concentration?
Yeah.
Drucker believed that it starts with recognizing that we have a choice.
Okay.
We can choose to focus, even if it's just for these short bursts of time. He suggested setting aside these dedicated blocks of time for deep work
Right.
and protecting them fiercely.
Right, like we talked about earlier.
Just like that executive who only took calls from the president and his wife during his 90-minute focus session.
It's like creating a do not disturb zone for your mind.
Right.
But I have to admit, even when I manage to carve out some dedicated time for focused work,
Yeah.
I often find myself getting distracted or jumping between tasks.
Right.
It's like my brain is addicted to multitasking.
That's a common challenge, and it's something Drucker addressed directly.
Yeah, okay.
He emphasized the importance of sloughing off yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
It's about regularly reviewing your activities and asking, if I were starting fresh today, would I still be doing this?
Right.
Is this truly essential, or is it just something I'm clinging to out of habit or inertia?
That's a powerful question. It's
Right.
like a decluttering exercise for your to-do list.
Exactly. It's about being ruthless with your
Yeah.
time and energy and making sure you're focusing on the things that truly matter.
Okay, so we've talked about prioritizing, focusing, and sloughing off yesterday.
Yeah.
But there's another big piece of the effectiveness puzzle that we haven't touched on yet.
Yeah.
Decision making.
Right.
How did Drucker approach this crucial aspect of leadership and effectiveness?
Drucker believed that effective decisions are judgments between alternatives.
Okay.
He pointed out that most decisions aren't about right versus wrong,
Yeah.
but rather choosing the best course of action from a set of imperfect options.
Right.
And he had a rather counterintuitive approach to making those tough decisions.
Counterintuitive, you say?
Yeah.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
He believed that we should start with opinions, not facts.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Shouldn't facts be the foundation of any good decision?
Here's the thing. Facts don't exist in a vacuum.
Okay.
They need to be interpreted.
Right.
And that interpretation is shaped by our opinions and assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
So by starting with opinions and making them explicit,
Right. Right.
we can then test them more rigorously. We can ask, what would have to be true for this opinion to be valid?
So it's about acknowledging the role of subjectivity in decision-making.
Exactly.
And by starting with opinions, we're forcing ourselves to be more transparent about our assumptions and biases.
Precisely. And this is where the importance of disagreement comes in.
Okay.
Drucker believed that disagreement is crucial for effective decision-making
Mm-hmm.
because it helps us challenge our assumptions,
Right.
explore different perspectives,
Yeah.
and ultimately arrive at more robust solutions.
I've definitely been in situations where everyone in the room seems to agree.
Right.
And it feels like we're just rubber stamping a decision without really thinking it through.
Yeah.
But how do we actually create that kind of productive disagreement?
Right.
Isn't that asking for trouble?
It's all about how you frame it.
Okay.
The goal isn't to win the argument,
Right.
but to explore the issue from multiple angles and make sure we're considering all the options.
Mm-hmm.
Drucker was a big fan of assigning someone the role of devil's advocate
Right.
to challenge assumptions
Mm-hmm.
and ensure that all perspectives are heard.
So it's less about arguing and more about, say, playing devil's advocate or seeking out diverse perspectives.
Exactly.
All right.
It's about making sure you're not just hearing what you want to hear, but what you need to hear.
Right.
He shares this example of Robert McNamara,
Okay.
who challenged the way the military measured inventory.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of getting bogged down in total numbers, he focused on identifying the vital few items.
Right.
That actually made a difference in combat readiness.
That makes a lot of sense. By challenging the status quo
Right.
and seeking out those dissenting opinions,
Yeah,
we can avoid falling into that trap of groupthink
absolutely.
and make more informed decisions.
Right.
But I'm curious, how does this idea of starting with opinions apply
Yeah.
in situations where we don't have a lot of data or experience to draw upon?
That's where Drucker's emphasis on looking beyond the numbers comes in.
Okay.
He believed in the importance of firsthand experience and direct observation.
Right.
He urged executives to get out of their offices
Yeah.
and talk to the people on the front lines to see for themselves what was really happening.
Okay.
It's about grounding our decisions in reality,
Right.
not just in these abstract data points.
I can see how that would be valuable, especially in today's world where we're bombarded with data from all directions.
Right.
It's easy to get lost in spreadsheets and reports and lose sight of the human element.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Drucker was all about connecting the dots between data, experience, and judgment.
Mm-hmm.
He believed that effective decision-making is this blend of art and science,
Right.
of intuition and analysis.
Okay.
And it's a process that requires constant vigilance and adaptation.
So it's not enough to just make a decision and move on.
Right.
We need to be willing to revisit our decisions,
Yeah,
to evaluate their impact, and to course correct if necessary.
precisely. Drucker was a big believer in what he called sloughing off yesterday,
Yeah.
which is a great way of thinking about how to stay agile and responsive in this constantly changing environment.
That can be a tough pill to swallow, especially if we're emotionally attached to a particular idea or project.
Yeah.
But I can see how clinging to the past can prevent us from seizing new opportunities
Right.
or adapting to changing circumstances.
Absolutely. Drucker believed that effectiveness is all about making the right things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that means having the courage to let go of what's no longer serving us
Right.
so we could focus on what truly matters.
This has been such an insightful deep dive into Drucker's work.
Right.
We've covered so much ground from managing our time and focusing on contribution
Yeah.
to running effective meetings, staffing from strength, making bold decisions, and having the courage to slough off yesterday.
Yeah.
My head is spinning with all these brilliant ideas.
It's a lot to take in,
Yeah.
but that's the beauty of Drucker's work.
Yeah.
It's packed with this timeless wisdom that we can apply to all aspects of our lives.
So what does this all mean for our listeners who are eager to put Drucker's principles into action? Where do they even begin?
I would suggest starting with that simple but profound question.
Okay.
What am I contributing?
Mm-hmm.
Take some time to reflect on your strengths,
Yeah.
your values, and the impact you want to make.
Right.
Identify the things that are truly important to you and focus your energy on those.
Okay.
And remember, effectiveness is a journey, not a destination.
Oh, yeah.
It's something that you can learn, cultivate, and continuously improve upon.
Beautifully said.
Thanks.
So, to our listeners, go forth and be effective.
Yes.
And until next time, keep diving deep